I'm Julie Grabbe. I am going to go through the Corporate Transparency Act. Before I start, can I have like a show of hands? Who has their own business in here? Okay. Have you filed your Corporate Transparency Act paperwork? Okay. So I will go through that. Yeah, I will go through that and take you through basically a full questionnaire on whether or not you're required to, what it means, what you have to do, all of that good stuff. So I always do first a little bit about me. If you guys want to scan that, that is my business card. It will show up right in your contacts, and you can go ahead and do that. But I'm Julie Grabbe. I've been a lawyer for 20 plus years, 22 years now. And counting, and I've done just about every kind of law you can imagine. I started in downtown St. Louis doing workers' compensation insurance defense, and moved here after meeting a farmer in a bar, and I've been here for the last 10, 11 years. So enjoying Kansas, and currently owning my own firm, practicing my own firm, and doing trademarks in business. So a little slide showing some of the things I used to do, some of the clients I used to work with. So I had the privilege of representing some pretty big Fortune and Global 500 companies. I did workers' compensation insurance defense in downtown St. Louis pretty much exclusively for about 11 years before moving to Kansas. So what we're going to cover today is the Corporate Transparency Act, the history, the authority. I'm not going to get too deep into that because I don't want you to fall asleep. Purpose of the act, the requirements, and then all the way through the process. We're going to go through the process. You're going to get your questions answered. We're going to figure out whether you have to comply, how to comply, and go from there. So the Corporate Transparency Act is something that Congress has been playing with for quite some time. You can see in here that it started around 2006, where they started proposing some legislation, and various versions of that went through Congress, died, started up again, died, started up again, died. In 2019, we had the transparency proposal, and that's the basis of today's Corporate Transparency Act that went into place January 1 of 2024. So in a nutshell, what it does is it is requiring beneficial owners and applicants of qualifying reporting companies, and we're going to define all that, to report identifying information to the government. So the purpose is so that the federal government can identify owners of corporations. So in America, it is fairly easy to hide ownership or veil ownership with the way different states are set up. And so the federal government wanted an overarching umbrella to figure out who owns what, so they can figure out how to get taxes, how to prohibit illegal activity, money laundering, trafficking, all of that stuff. So that is the purpose. That is why it passed, and it really is mirroring what a lot of other countries already have. So what we want to know is, does it apply to your business? Are you a reporting company? Very easy to figure out. Did your entity file your incorporation paperwork with the Secretary of State? Most people are going to say yes, they did. So if they did, we go to the next question, which is, do you fall under one of the 23 exemptions? So there are quite a few exemptions here. One of the notable ones is tax exempt entity. If you're tax exempt, you do not have to file. You're not a reporting company, and so the Corporate Transparency Act will not apply to you. However, this act is going to apply to many, many millions of small businesses, because that is the nature and intention of the act, is to find out ownership for all the small businesses across the United States. So what are the three things we're reporting? We are reporting company information, so your company information. 2, you're reporting beneficial owner information. And 3, you're going to be reporting applicant information. And we're going to define all those terms as well. So reporting company information. What you're reporting, if you're not under an exemption, is your legal name, any trade names or DBAs, the complete current U.S. address of your business, your formation state, so where you were formed, where you filed that Secretary of State paperwork, and your TIN or your EIN, your federal number. Information on beneficial owner and applicants, if applicable, right? We're going to file the legal name, and this is people information, right? Beneficial owner information, legal name, your date of birth, your complete U.S. address, your image of your identifying document. And so this is going to be a PDF of your, or a JPEG of your passport, your driver's license, or your state ID. And you're going to actually upload this to a website. And then the identifying number on that document. So those documents have ID numbers, we upload those. So those are the things that you're going to need before you start this process. So I have a little cartoon there, but Julie, who is who? So who is a beneficial owner? A beneficial owner is one of two people. They have 25% or more ownership interest in the company, and this can include unrealized interest. So they, when they wrote this, wrote it so that it is kind of all-encompassing. You can see down there, number 5, it's a catch-all. Anything else used to establish ownership. So not only is it the 25% ownership interest, it is also unrealized interests. It can be convertible instruments that are going to be realized later or changed later. So you have to be aware of whether or not that puts you over the 25% mark, and or even if you're not using this, 25%, if there's anything else that is used to establish ownership. And it's pretty amorphous right now. We don't have any case law on it, so we'll see what that turns out to be. But right now we don't have a whole lot of guidance on what subsection 5 here means. But the second way you can be a beneficial owner is also exercising substantial control. And that's another one that is, again, a little amorphous. We have a little more guidance here. But basically, if you are a senior officer, so if you have one of these titles and you're performing similar functions regardless of the title, so even if you don't have the title, but you're doing the functions of a senior officer, you're going to be considered a beneficial owner. If you have the authority to appoint or remove senior officers or the majority of your board of directors, you're a beneficial owner. If you are an important decision maker, well, what the heck does that mean? You can direct or determine or have substantial influence over the company's important decisions. That includes business, finances, structure. So really those higher level decisions. And then they, of course, add in the catch-all, any other form of substantial control over the reporting company. So that's the catch-all. So it's pretty broad. And if anybody has any questions, I did leave some time at the end, obviously, to answer those. Who is a company applicant? So we are required to report company applicants only if the company was registered or created after January 1 of 2024. So that means if your company was created before that date, we don't have to worry about this section. And that's because it's going to be really hard to go find maybe the person that actually filed that paperwork with the Secretary of State. So that's what the applicant is. The applicant is the person that filed the paperwork and potentially the person that directed the filing. So that could be you, that could be an assistant, that could be an attorney, that could be any number of people that file paperwork for you, and the person that directs that filing. So we have to file all of that information on that previous screen for company applicants and beneficial owners. Okay, when am I filing this stuff? So if your company was created before January 1 of 2024, you have 1 year, so before January 1 of 2025, to file this initial report. If you created your company between January 1, 2024 and January 1, 2025, you're going to have 90 days after receiving your creation or registration paperwork from the Secretary of State. So when you file that paperwork with the Secretary of State, you get a return back, and that return tells you a date. It's usually the same day, a few seconds later after you hit submit. That is the date from when you have the 90 days to file. Now, if you create something after January 1, 2025, you're going to have 30 days to file that report from receiving your registration confirmation from the Secretary of State. This is not an annual ongoing requirement. So it's not annual compliance unless you have a change in ownership information. So it's not necessarily required annually if nothing's changed, but you have an ongoing duty to update it within 30 days of change to your company information, your beneficial owner information. You don't have to report termination or dissolution of the company, which is interesting to me. I don't know if they're just going to end up with this gigantic database of historical information. And you don't have to update personal information for company applicants. But other than that, if you make a company and 30 days later your beneficial ownership information changes, you are required to change that. You're not waiting, a year to do that. So be aware of the when requirements. Process. How? So we go to the Department of Treasury. That's where we're reporting all of our information, and we're reporting it to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. And there's a website there, and you can click on it and you file directly online, or you can get a PDF form and download it, fill it out, and then submit it that way. It's pretty easy just to do it online. It takes about 5 minutes as long as you have all your documents with you. You should be aware that when you upload your images, we need 4 megabytes or under, and it needs to be a JPEG or a PDF. So that's all they're accepting right now. And then there will be a download filing receipt. So once you file it, you hit submit. A piece of paper comes back to you. You're going to want to save that for your records. This is what the first page looks like. And it will say you're looking for that filing successful status at the top. There are 2 other pages that come with this that include everything that you put in that form. So you can check it later on, down the road. Hey, what did I file? At what point did we file this? What was the beneficial owner information? Do we need to change it? Yada, yada. Obviously, I didn't include it because it's got some confidential client information on it, but there are 2 more pages to that. So failure to comply. Well, I don't want my name in a database, so I don't really want to do this. Not really an option. So there are civil and criminal penalties, and the way they wrote this is that they are going to have penalties for both individuals and corporations. So that means you as an individual can suffer criminal penalties, civil penalties, and along with your corporation. So the knowing or willful failure to report, you're going to look at $500 a day. So January 2nd, January 3rd, January 4th, right? You can do the math. Very stiff fines for not complying with this act. And then there's up to 2 years of imprisonment and a fine of up to $10,000. Now, the crimes and penalties obviously go up as you proceed, depending on what you're doing. The last one there, if you are doing it in conjunction with violation of another federal law, or as a pattern of activity involving over $100,000 in up to a 12-month period, we're looking at $500,000 and 10 years of imprisonment. So they're pretty serious with these stiff fines. So I recommend filing because it takes 5 minutes and it will save you lots of money and headache. There is some current case law on this. So as expected, somebody challenged this saying that it was unconstitutional. The NSBA is the National Small Business United. They filed a lawsuit. Plaintiff Winkles, it was a member, and he's the owner of 2 small businesses. One is a small family business, and the other one's under like 20 million in revenue. The NSBA represents about 65,000 small business owners. So the court had determined in that case that the Corporate Transparency Act exceeds the Congress's power under the Commerce Clause and issues an injunction. So basically meaning FinCEN cannot enforce the Corporate Transparency Act against Winkles, any of the companies he is the beneficial owner of, any of the companies he is the applicant of, and then any members, the NSBA, and any members of the NSBA as of that March 1, 2024 date. Now, of course, an appeal was filed shortly after that came out. It was filed March 11th. We do not have a court date for that, so that's on appeal. So we will be waiting and watching to see what happens there. But for everyone else, the Corporate Transparency Act still applies. And I'm just going to guess that it's probably something that we're going to have to deal with. So we will see, but we don't have an appeal date yet. So curiously watching, right? How to file the Corporate Transparency Act. So I will have a place on here later for you to get the slides, and you can click on here and it will take you to a video of me actually doing a filing. So it's a 5-minute video. It's a free video. It's for you to do yourself. I like money too, and you can pay me to do it, but this is one of those things that I think business owners are very, very capable of doing on their own. You don't need an attorney to do it. Now that you know what it is, you can go file it yourself. And if you want to watch me do it, take 5 minutes, learn how to do it, and go do it yourself. So common misconceptions, and then there's some other things to think about here. So these are things I've heard over the last 6 to 8 months as I've been kind of talking about the Corporate Transparency Act. And this first one, I throw my husband under the bus all the time because he's like, I think the accountant did it. And I said, well, honey, did you give him your driver's license or your passport? And he went, no. So if you didn't give your accountant the driver's license, the passport, and the authority to do it, they didn't do it. So they need that documentation to file the paperwork. So if anyone says they did it for you, you should also be getting a receipt from them for your records. Okay. whose information is going into the database? Something you want to think about, right? I don't know if your assistants are comfortable having their information in the federal database. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But if they are going to be the person that applies for, right, the registration, the Secretary of State, incorporation paperwork is not hard. Most of us know how to do that. And so who is going to be responsible for that? Willful violations. So how are you confirming as a business that you're getting accurate information from all the stakeholders that you need to? So from those beneficial owners, how do you know that you have their updated home address? How do you know you have their updated information? Obviously, as a company, you know if you move, right? And I have to update that. But sometimes a beneficial owner will move and maybe we don't really think about, oh, now we have to update something. So one of the things we want to talk about as a business is our governing documents, how internally we're going to handle when a principal decides they're going to move or there's going to be some change in their beneficial ownership information. How are they going to get that information to whoever needs it and whoever's going to report that? So kind of an internal filing procedure SOP to think about. And then data considerations, right? You're taking a photograph of an ID, a passport, a driver's license, personal information you're collecting. How are you keeping that safe? Is it locked down? What's your procedure for getting rid of it when you're done? How long are you keeping it? All of that needs to be considered. And then scam alerts. So this was a big one. This went out. I mean, as soon as this website went live, the scams came out. So the scammers are sending QR codes to people, telling people they need to scan the QR code to do their filing or sending a letter, hey, you need to do the filing. So FinCEN is not going to send you a reminder. They're saying business owners, you are business owners. You need to be aware of the laws. We're not going to hound you and remind you. Okay. And they have a big scam alert on their website as well. But just be aware of that. Some fun tips. So, I have left room for some questions, but I did want to hit a couple other things here because I know that the Corporate Transparency Act, really, it doesn't take that long to kind of learn about and teach. So the other thing businesses that recently need to be aware of is the FTC has banned non-competes. So if you are a business and you have non-competes active from former employees or current employees, you need to be letting your employees know that you are not going to be enforcing those non-competes. And if they are former employees, if you have their address, you're required to send them a form saying, hey, we are not going to enforce this non-compete. And the FTC has a dummy form that you can use, download, and send out to your prior employees. If you don't have a prior employee address, you are not required to go find it. So they're not requiring you, if you don't have it, to go find it. This is really aimed at the employee relationship, not things like franchises. And they have a limitation as well as for senior executives. So for senior executives that are making $151,000, I think it's $164 annually, and are in a position to make senior executive decisions, they are allowed to enforce the ones that are previously put into place, but they are not allowed to create any ones going forward. And this goes into effect September of 2024. Now, that is obviously caveat, unless someone files a lawsuit and we get some sort of injunction. But that is what's coming down the pipe right now. The FTC has ruled that non-competes are impeding competition. It's unfair competition. And so what we want to do as business owners is really take a look at our non-disclosure clauses, making sure those are airtight, and making sure that our trade secrets are protected and that you have internal ways to protect that, that you have policies and procedures in place, and that you have appropriate wording in your contracts. So that's another fun one that came down the pipe. And then the most recent scam, so this was a fun thing that happened last night that I wanted to share. So this one is affecting attorneys. So attorneys are also small business owners, right? So we also get these scam alerts. So yesterday in my inbox came a request for legal services from a farm in North Dakota, very large farm, looking for me to do a contract for them and giving me some agreements and telling me to look them over and saying, hey, send us your retainer, we'll pay it, and we'll pay you to do this. And oh, by the way, in the next year, we're also looking to establish a huge farm in Kansas, right? So attorney bells are going, well, that seems like that would be a lot of work and interesting. And okay, so I go, maybe we need to check out, right? This came in cold. So it came in on a form. Nobody called me. And then when we contacted them for further information, the email that came back was very, very good. So this is one of the best ones I've seen. That's why I wanted to share it. The email that came back, great English, right? I think that AI, ChatGPT, all of the things that are auto creating things now are making it much better for scammers because it looked great. So read it, looked at the things, and went, this doesn't quite look right. I'm going to share with you, maybe, yeah, the website, because this is a beautiful website. And, you know, the AI generation that they did here on this website, right? It looks like a giant operation, is great. English is good. Nothing is off. The only thing that tipped me off initially was the email addresses didn't match. Phone numbers didn't match. But when you look up J&K Farms on the internet, this is what comes up. This is the biggest, the top line thing that comes up. And so as a business owner, you know, I think we really need to know what to do when we, hold on, I think we're on a weird screen here. So when someone takes our website, right? So I don't know if everyone's aware of what do you do if someone's like spoofing your business, because J&K Farms is a real business in North Dakota, but it's not that business, right? So when people go to look at it, they're going to see this and go, oh, you're legit. Okay. So I looked into it a little bit. The phone number is from California. I looked up the domain that it is under, and the ICANN, it's called ICANN or Whois, will give you where the domain owner is located, not necessarily their information because there's privacy things in place for that. They are out of Iceland. And you can request Google to take things down. Hey, this is a fake profile. They're spoofing my business. But guess what you need to do that? Copyright or trademark. So you need to have proof that you own the intellectual property that's up there in order to get it taken down. So you can make the request to Google. They can say you got to prove it. If you can't prove it, it becomes difficult. You can also go to the website provider. So if it's GoDaddy, GoDaddy is hosting it. You can ask GoDaddy to take it down. They're going to ask you for the same thing. Same thing with social media handles, Facebook accounts, all of that stuff. They're going to ask you for proof that you own the IP that you want taken down. So imagine, you know, if this is your business and people are soliciting money and scamming people, what kind of reputation your actual Google review is going to get, right? If we're unable to take this down because we don't really have ownership. So that was just a fun thing that happened to me yesterday, and I just wanted to share it. I actually shared it with a bunch of attorneys last night at midnight because I didn't want anybody else to look at it and go, oh, this looks like a good deal. And so I already got back a few responses. At least one attorney in town has also gotten it. But what they do is they send you the retainer in a cashier's check. You put it in your account. They say 3 days later, before it's had a chance to clear, oh, the deal went south. We need our retainer back. You send the retainer back. The check never cleared, and you're out the money. So that's how the scam works. But if anybody has any questions, I am happy to answer. If you want the PDFs, you can go to grabbelaw.com/chamber on your phone. It'll ask you for your name, your email. That's probably it. And then it will pop a copy of the PDFs into your email. So go ahead and do that, and I will answer questions.
Julie, for businesses that have more than one substantial owner at 25% or more, would each of those folks have to present an ID for that reporting?
Yeah, so on the form, your beneficial owners, anybody, if you have more than one, yep, we have to do ownership information for everybody. Yep. Anybody else have Corporate Transparency Act questions?
Excuse me, do they have to pierce the corporate veil in order to move forward with people who may have done wrong regarding reporting?
So I don't think they have to pierce the corporate veil. So what you're talking about is if they file a lawsuit and they want to file individually against you. So because of the way the statute is written, because of the way the law is written, they wrote in individual penalties. They wrote in individual liability. They made this a personal requirement, right? You as a person are required to file these things. So no, I don't believe they do need to pierce any corporate veil because of the way it's written. Interesting question.
I was only curious.
Yeah.
Corporations and people.
Right.
I wondered how that
Right. And I think the intention is to make this as hard hitting as possible, right? So they want to make you personally liable so that you get it done. Yeah. How are they going to determine who has to comply? So yeah, right. So I would assume at FinCEN, someone is taking a look at filings, state filings. Those are all public record. And I would assume there's going to be some cross-checking done. And, I would guess that there's going to be selective enforcement at first. There's probably going to be some things they've had their eye on, and they're going to selectively enforce those first. And then moving on from there, if they probably will establish some sort of a process to do that. And I think they have, but I don't think it's real active right now. So
Julie, you shared a little bit about businesses that are filing for business January 1 and after, or businesses that are already established. Can you share again when the filing deadline is before this started?
Yeah, so if you were created before January 1 of 2024, you have a year. So before January 1, 2025. And then it obviously shrinks as we go. So for this year, if you created it during 2024, you've got the 90 days. After 2025, you got 30 days. They said that's enough time for you guys to figure out this law. 30 days. So. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay. If anybody has questions on trademarks, 315 right there. You can follow me on any of the socials right there. And thank you guys so much for coming. Appreciate it.